did you know that every year 350,000 people die from cardiac arrest in the United States? But by knowing CPR, we can change that
Just
statistic.
kind of move your right or your left arm around.
Joining me now on the comfy couch is Dr. Kumar and Ashley Mahoric, and welcome to Cityline.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
So first of all, I'd like to understand, Dr. Kumar, how would someone know they needed to perform CPR?
Well, this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart because my dad had a cardiac arrest while I was a medical student. And thankfully, in my first year of medical student year, they taught me how to do CPR, and I was able to hear what we call agonal breathing from the room next door, and I was able to rush in and found my father unresponsive, and I was able to administer CPR to him, and that bought time for him to be able to go to the hospital. So this is what happens very often is, most people out of hospital cardiac arrests happen to people in the home, people who are your relatives or your friends, and they collapse all of a sudden with no apparent reason. And when they do that, very often the reason is cardiac arrest. That means the heart comes to a standstill. And we need to immediately sort of do the function of the heart through actions like CPR, which can buy you valuable time until help gets to you.
Now, you mentioned the collapse. What's the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest?
So a heart attack, in the strictest sense of the word, is a blockage in an artery that goes to the heart. So the heart itself does not get enough blood supply. So that's a very specific definition for a heart attack, occlusion of blood flow. Cardiac arrest is the heart stopping from beating at all. So not all heart attacks lead to cardiac arrest, although it can be a very common cause of cardiac arrest. So it's a heart standstill, that's what we call a cardiac arrest, which is a bit different from a heart attack. The cardiac arrest is an electrical problem, and the heart attack is a blood supply problem.
Okay. So we heard of, in the statistic at the beginning, about 350,000 people die from cardiac arrest. How common is cardiac arrest? I can't equate those numbers, so maybe you can.
I think many of us know of people who have died suddenly. Some in their youth, most often older people. It's 99% adults, but you've also heard of young children having cardiac arrest from things like drowning or respiratory problems or allergies and so on. So it is a large number. It's approaching, 500,000 total cardiac arrests if you include in-hospital cardiac arrests. So that's, 350,000 people is out of the hospital. These are all people that we could intervene on. It's a bit like, I think it should be like a seatbelt in a car. Everyone who is capable should know how to do CPR because it can save almost 500,000 lives.
Great. Well, I think we're going to move on to a demonstration here now. And Ashley, I understand you have a very personal reason you want to share to encourage all of us to learn CPR. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. Actually, my life was saved in 2018 by CPR. My partner found me unresponsive. I was very lucky that day that he decided to come into the room. He noticed that I was sleeping in a position that wasn't normal, and he checked on me, and he was like, this isn't right, she's unresponsive. And he immediately got me off the bed, started doing hands-only CPR, and called 911, and they continued to walk him through to make sure that they had the correct cadence until emergency personnel arrived. And I was in cardiac arrest, and thankfully, because of the steps that he took, that my life was saved. And like Dr. Kumar was sharing, 70% of out-of-hospital cardiac arrests happen in the home. And I am one of those examples of a family member having to save their loved one's life. And we want everybody to know the 2 simple steps to be able to save their family member's life. And so I'd love to take you over to the demonstration area and be able to practice hands-only CPR if you're in with me.
That'd be great.
Awesome.
I'd love to
All
learn.
right. So the 2 easy steps with hands-only CPR is you check and see if they're responsive. Sometimes, like Dr. Kumar was sharing, there'll be angular breathing, which is kind of a gasping sound, but sometimes they won't give any response at all. So you want to make sure that somebody, either yourself or somebody in the area, calls 911. You want to be able, if there are other people in the area, directly point at them so they are clear that they are the person calling 911, requesting emergency personnel to come along. And then while they are doing that, you are simply going to press hard and fast at the center of the chest on the sternum at a rate of 100 to 120 beats per minute. Oftentimes, people will sing a song in their head so that they can keep that cadence. I think many of us have heard Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. There's also Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. If you're looking for kids that are going to be able to do it as well, Baby Shark. There's also a lot of Taylor Swift songs.
Wow.
So we have a whole playlist online that if anybody's interested in knowing what 100 to 120 beats per minute looks like, and you can get that song in your head, this will help you kind of continue the rate. So you'll want to be able to put your hands right in the middle and push hard and fast right down on the center of their chest. This is a labor-intensive activity, so if you have others that are around you that are able to help out, you can tap in and be able to continue doing CPR until an emergency personnel survives and arrives.
Now, Dr. Kumar, I've heard from time to time people have said that they're scared of breaking chest bones and things like that with the compressions. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'd rather break a bone and have someone survive than not try, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
The key really is to achieve enough compression to push the blood out of the heart and get enough blood flow to the brain. That's the key.
okay. So the hands-only CPR is enough?
That's a great question because traditionally in the past we've only talked about a ratio of compression to breathing, breaths, right? Rescue breaths. But what we found is that it leads to a lot of people being reticent to actually do the CPR. They don't want to have to do the breaths. They're worried about contact. Now in the age of COVID, people are even more worried about it. And really studies have shown that the most important component of resuscitation is the chest compression and the defibrillation, which is the shocks that we give with a AED.
Oh, sure.
And so buying time to get to that AED, the most important thing we can do is chest compression. The breaths are less important, is what we found. And it's equivalent in terms of its survival rate with compression-only CPR compared with rescue breaths.
Now, I understand, based on a conversation that we had prior with Valerie, about the couple exceptions about the breathing and compressions.
Right. So if it's primarily a respiratory breathing related problem that leads to the cardiac arrest, then the breaths become important. So a perfect example of that would be a cardiac arrest due to drowning. In those situations, yes, rescue breathing is important. But for the vast majority of bystander observed cardiac arrests, chest compressions alone is sufficient.
Okay, great. So, Ashley, if someone wanted more training and to take a class, how would they get involved and get that information?
Absolutely. We always encourage everyone to be able to respond with hands-only CPR, but if they're looking for further education with the breast, but also certification, they can go to heart.org/nation to learn more.
All right, very good. Now, on the video that we had, I also saw some pillows. What are those compression pillows? What are those for? Just if you don't have enough Recessa Annies or Recessa Allens?
Yes, there's a variety of different demo Annies that you can be able to use. These ones are great because they have more of the rib structure, and you feel that motor compression of how hard you have to push to be able to get the rate and the depth. You want to be able to go about 1 to 2 inches down to get that blood pumping through the body. The little pillows are simply an inflatable one that makes it easily accessible to be able to share with friends and family members, that you can pass around the Annies so that everybody knows how to do the life-saving skill.
Great. So, Dr. Kumar, getting back to the original question about recognizing a time when you might need to perform CPR, are there signs on a person that's fallen? I mean, are you just checking for pulse and then moving forward? Or, I mean, because I don't want to get confused with someone that choked and fell, because they lost their breath or what, so are there physical signs, or is it, check the pulse and go, or what?
That's a great question. The aim of the American Heart Association is to make things as simple as possible for everyone to be able to do it quickly in a time-sensitive manner. And so the recommendation is, if you find someone who is unresponsive, you should probably administer CPR. But if you can and know how to check for a pulse, you can check for what's called a central pulse, such as in your neck, the carotid artery in your neck, or the pulse in the groin, the femoral artery. That's harder to examine when you're just trying to quickly assess a patient or a person. But finding somebody unresponsive, often even when it's due to a breathing problem, when they can't breathe properly, it eventually leads to the heart stopping as well. So for simplicity's sake, it's important to recognize when someone collapses and is unresponsive, to then quickly initiate, first call for help and initiate CPR while you're doing that. That's the important thing. But if you can check for a pulse, that's great. When they have a strong pulse, it's probably primarily a breathing problem. You can try the rescue breaths, but for simplicity's sake, unresponsive, out of the blue, call for help, and chest compressions.
Great. Okay. Now, when you talk about your experience, it's just such a blessing to, hear it and realize you survived it. And what do you remember about the after effects of when you came out? And did your chest hurt? Did you? Obviously you were alive, so that's exciting. But
That's a really interesting question, because I actually was in the hospital for 3 days. So many of the things that I'm able to account about my story or shared through friends and family members to be able to talk about the CPR. Because when I woke up in the hospital, I was like, where am I? Like, what happened? And they shared with me that I had been intubated for several days. And so it was an interesting experience. But when it comes to the chest compressions themselves, I didn't have any effects from it. Luckily, I didn't have my ribs broken, but very similar to Dr. Kumar, I would rather have them broken than not be able to complain about it later.
Right. Well, we were very fortunate here too, as one of our bosses was in a triathlon and drowned, and then was able to be resuscitated with CPR, and then was put in the hospital in a medicine-induced coma, and then warm blood reintroduced, and she came out of it, and now she's still alive and thriving down in Arizona, playing golf every day and able to enjoy her grandchildren, and so very important. Now the Tacoma Fire Department, I'm understanding, is involved in CPR training throughout the community, and if you haven't seen that, please get on the city website and learn about all the dates. There's probably 10 dates listed on that, CPR Sundays and CPR Wednesdays and all this stuff, but there's a great opportunity to be trained. So as we go into break here, let's start some more CPR. Once again, thank you for joining us today, Dr. Kumar and Ashley, and let's do some compressions and send our crowd out. And we'll say that the shared ministries will be here, associated ministries, to talk about shared housing in just a moment. Stay with us.